At the end of the 15th century, Christopher Columbus discovered America. Since then, all the explorers in the world dreamed of being the first to discover something. Antarctica was the last of the continents to be discovered, but the pioneer race did not end there. Excitement pushed humans to climb the highest mountains on Earth, as well as Everest, the top of the world. People went beyond the planet to discover space. Unfortunately, almost all great discoveries had to be paid with human lives. Today, it may seem that everything has been open for a long time, at least on Earth. And you won't be a pioneer, but it's not. A vivid example of this is the small uncontacted tribal groups living deep in the Amazon jungle. To discover one of these unique unexplored people is the dream of most travelers, scientists and journalists. And for attempts to discover tribes, you also have to pay with human lives. It's hard to believe, but it's possible even today, in our time. We're in the heart of the Ecuadorian Amazon now. It's tropical rainforest and no civilization for hundreds of miles around us. This is the home of uncontacted Indians. They are fighting for it, and they're killing all those who try to invade this territory. The Indians of Waorani, which we have been studying for more than a month, was discovered quite recently. Just 66 years ago, all these people lived deep in the jungle and had no connection with the outside world. How they first encountered civilization is not just a story, it's a real blockbuster. And today we'll watch it with the eyes of the main characters. We'll follow in the footsteps of the pioneers. Let's fly! The World Inside Out with Dmytro, Ecuador. In the middle of last century, 5 young American missionaries arrived in Ecuador. They dreamed of being the first to discover the Waorani tribe that was uncontacted back then. We're going to see those places where the dramatic story of establishing the first contacts unfolded. We are landing in the village of Toniampare, a dirt road. Basically, this is the main means of transportation here, such little planes. The strip is very short, so a timely stop is important to avoid hitting the woods. Here we managed to gather people who know best of all exactly how this happened. Buenos dias. Dima, Tementa, Matias, Oma, Begonka. When you look at these smiling men, you'll never guess what unites and connects them. They are the closest relatives of the Indians who first contacted the strangers from the civilized world. Moreover, we even managed to find the last living participant of those events. I feel a little shaky inside. To meet such a person is a unique opportunity, and I hope we'll tell you the unique details. Kimayati? Yes, it's me. These people will help us restore the events that turned the world of Waorani upside down, as well as the history of the entire region and the people. And we'll start where the pioneers began their discovery. We are in a small town called Chao. As the name implies, it was built by the eponymous oil company, and oil exploration was carried out on the lands of the Waorani for the company's employees. The same city became the starting point for the Operation Auca. The word Auca can be translated as savage. This is how the missionaries called their special operation. All the details of the plan were kept top secret. Only 5 participants and their wives know about the operation. They documented all their actions using an amateur movie camera. Later, this valuable material was used to create a unique film titled Through Gates of Splendor. Who were those adventurers? Nate Sain, Jim Elliot, Peter Flammen, Ed McCarley and Roger Udarian. Simple young guys, the oldest of whom was only 32 years old, fans of their work. Before that, no one dared to initiate contact with the Waorani. This is a Piper PA-14 aircraft. The same type was used by the missionaries to establish their first contacts. Today, it's essentially a monument to the missionary movement and a reminder of the vain attempts to establish contacts with wild tribes. Throughout the Operation Awka, the legendary Piper aircraft took off from this very runway. The missionaries knew that there were scattered settlements of savage Waorani somewhere in the jungle. To find them, Nate Saint, a missionary and a first-class pilot, divided the jungle into sectors and systematically combed one by one. Piper PA-14 could fly at low speed, which is a huge plus for aerial reconnaissance. Flying low over the jungle, people could see the space between the trees more clearly and find dwellings and uncontacted tribes. In the town of Shell, right opposite the airfield, in the house of Nate, the pilot and leader of the 5 missionaries. Back then, it was a base camp where food and equipment for their life in the jungle were collected. Flights were planned and special operations were being prepared. Today, it's a museum where unique artifacts and photographs are stored that remind of Operation Auca. This is the control center. It was the place from which that all the actions were coordinated. There were a radio station here. That's the most important thing. Using those, Chief Missionary Nate Saint's wife got in touch with her husband and wrote down the coordinates. She always knew where the plane was located, registered it on the map. These are the original logs, which were used to record all the data of the flights of the missionaries. She noted the amount of fuel left in the tank. I mean, there was a constant radio exchange. And such devices were used when they worked in the jungle. Using such radio station, they got in touch. In September 1955, Nate got lucky. Flying around the next sector, he managed to make out the Waorani settlement among the endless grounds of trees. It was a few simple buildings and naked people around. I remember that we lived in the woods for a long time, but we never heard a loud noise. But one day, when we went to the river, we heard an unusual rumble and saw that a plane was flying. People who have never seen an aircraft in their life perceive the wonder in different ways. Our guide, an Indian named Ginta, told us before that when he was little and saw the plane for the first time, he and his tribesmen thought it was a ghost. My parents were horrified. We thought it was a monster or a ghost, which we call oremue. And from our past expeditions, we know that aircraft can be perceived by uncontacted people as something alive, for example, as a huge bird of prey or a giant insect. With such movements, they try to scare away. They're trying to scare the helicopter. Did you realize that it was something mechanical, created in another world? Or did you think it was a living being? We saw the pilot inside. He waved his hand, so we were aware that it was a human, and the plane wasn't a monster. The plane came back the next morning. A rope was tied to it, and there was a large basket on it. The basket was lowered to the ground, and there was a small knife inside. Due to this aircraft design, it was possible to come up with a new interesting scheme for exchanging gifts with uncontacted tribes. The Piper was flying in circles at low speed. A rope was lowered from it and a basket containing a gift was attached to it. Due to the large length of the rope and the minimum radius in maneuvers, the gift fixed at the bottom of the rope remained almost motionless, and it was very convenient for the Indians to approach and pick it up. The next day, the plane flew in again, circled and brought us a machete. We thought maybe we should give them something in return. The next time they flew in, we sent them a parrot. We tied him to a rope and they took him away. The parrot was even talking. He knew how to say the phrase, "My mother is a cow." That was the name of a woman from our village. Are they telling the truth about monkey meat? Did you give them monkey meat? Yes. After the hunt, we had a lot of monkey meat. We sent it to them, so they could taste it too. The missionaries felt great joy. Their plan was working. They were already sure that the return gifts from the Indians were a sure sign that they could make friends with the savages. They came many times. One day we decided to try and pull the plane down with this rope. But when we grabbed it, the pilot cut the rope and it fell down. After that, they dropped bags of things to us by parachute. There were enough gifts for everyone, but we were scared. We didn't understand why this flying thing came so often. After 6 weeks of an active gift exchange, the missionaries concluded that the Waorani were most likely friendly, and they decided it was time to make the first contact. They flew around the habitat of the tribe and found a sandy strip 200 meters long on the bank of the Huaorani River. Here again, the aircraft played a decisive role because it required a very short distance to take off or land in. Together with the relatives of those who were part of this first meeting, we set off to look for that very place on the boat. But finding that place is already difficult. For half a century, the coastline of the river has changed. Nearby, we find exactly the same forelands. We can see a small shoal. The missionaries found a shoal like that and landed their plane. I mean, everything looks about the same as in 1956. So, the plane landed on such a beach, right? Yes, but that beach was a bit bigger. As far as we know, the beach was 200 meters, but still the sand was like this. Of course, the missionaries were the ace pilots, because to land here is a risky business. The missionaries deliberately chose a place a little further away from the Waorani settlement, 4 miles away. They didn't want their visit to look like an invasion or tribal land. The Americans set up camp and waited for the Indians themselves to come out to them. We heard a motor from the Huaorani River and went to the side. On the shore, we saw the missionaries. But we didn't want to immediately approach them and watch them from the woods. In the woods, the Indians turn into jaguars, so to say. They move very slowly and carefully. They're neither heard nor seen. Here, friends, from the shore, you can't see what's in the forest, because dense vegetation covers everything. But when you enter the forest, you can see the river perfectly. There are a lot of gaps, and your enemy won't notice you. When Waorani get ready for an encounter, they spend a lot of time watching sentries. They count the number of people, how many weapons they have, which one is the most dangerous. First, they study the situation properly. The missionaries got all their belongings out of their plane and set up the camp. The small plane couldn't deliver many things, so the missionaries built the camp mainly from improvised materials. During the day, they escaped from the heat under a small canopy, and at the night, they climbed higher up a tree. They had a tree house. Why do they live on a tree? There are many dangerous animals here, for example, jaguars and snakes, so it was safer that way. 3 days after the missionaries settled on the banks of the river, the Indians decided to come out of the woods to meet the newcomers. Nankibi and 2 women came up first. My father was the most curious aunt, so he went first. He was well received, given food and water. During the first meeting, the Indians and the missionaries talked using gestures. It was a unique moment. For the first time, the forest people learned that there were other people in the world. The missionaries smiled a lot. It was important to show good intentions. And the Indians looked at the newcomers with curiosity and felt them amazing device. You are watching the rarest, unique shots. This is a historic moment captured by the missionaries themselves during their first encounter with the Waorani. The missionaries gave us many valuable things: machetes, pots, axes, spoons, knives. They tried to explain that the aircraft might bring even more gifts. But you need a place to land, otherwise the plane will crash. With gestures, they showed that it was necessary to cut down the trees. Then the plane will be able to land successfully right near the settlement. My dad was even invited to fly a plane. They circled over our settlement and he shouted through the loudspeaker, "Hello, it's me, Nankibi, I'm flying over you." So on January 6, 1956, a historic event took place, the first peaceful contact with the Waorani tribe. The missionaries saw that the tribe, which had previously been considered murderers, was capable of peaceful communication and didn't pose a threat. At that moment, the Americans already felt like winners. Probably at that moment, they thought that contact with the Waorani had already been established. Yes, at that time they were totally calm, and they had no idea what would happen next. The missionaries brought some photographs with them. One of them depicted white people and Dayuma. Dayuma is an uncontacted Waorani girl who fled the tribe 7 years before the missionaries landed and began to live in civilization. Coincidentally, she was the sister of one of the first to go to the beach. The whole tribe considered Dayuma long dead, but the missionaries took her picture thinking that this would help them for a common language with the savages and the first contact. But suddenly the picture became the beginning of the end. When we saw the image of Dayuma, we were very surprised. How can this be? None of us knew what a picture was, and we had an idea that perhaps these whites were cannibals, and Dayuma's picture meant they had eaten her. We were afraid that they would eat us too. If luck had been on the missionaries' side and they had met someone else from the tribe, things might have turned out differently, but they met Nankiwi, who misunderstood their intentions. Did he also think that those people were cannibals? Nankiwi was so terrified of that photo that I also believe they were cannibals. Nankiwi saw the image of a tribeswoman and began to convince everyone that the strangers on the planet were cannibals, and they ate Dayuma too. That's why they only had a picture of her. But the Americans didn't speak the Waorani language, so they hadn't even the slightest idea about it. They spent the whole day with the Indians. The first meeting went smoothly from the missionaries' point of view, and now the Americans themselves were waiting for a return invitation from the Waorani. On January 8, March, the chief missionary's wife was near the radio station and contacted her husband, Nate. It was at noon. He asked to pray for them, said that it was a special day. He also promised that at 4:30 p.m. he would get in touch again. But at that time it was silence. The wife was unable to contact her husband, and it became clear that something terrible had happened. We collected our weapons and went to their camp. We decided that it was better to kill the strangers. There were 6 of us. What weapons did you have? We carried many spears with us. We sent the women first to the missionaries. They were supposed to divert their attention so that they would come together, and it would be easier to attack them. Dayuma's mother was one of the women. She was in grief, thinking that the strangers killed and ate her daughter. The women called the pilot to come out as well. They showed the missionaries the machetes they had once given. The missionaries began to come and look. The missionaries weren't afraid of the people approaching them with spears. They thought they had already made friends with the Waorani. So you see, it was such an insidious plan, and the murder was planned. We ran out of the bushes to attack. Without saying a word, Dmytro attacked them. He was the leader and the first to strike with a spear. He did it very quickly and accurately. Missionaries began to run away, but they entered the river and couldn't move quickly. There we got them. I just got chills from what he said. How did the missionaries respond when they realized that you had come to kill them? I don't think they expected this. How many people have you killed? I only killed one person. Who exactly did you kill? I don't know who he was. I just stabbed him. That's all. Yes, you got that right. Dmytro is not just a witness to how the Waorani made contact. He was one of the killers. This man plunged a spear into one of the pioneers with his own hands, and he is the last survivor of the 6 killers. It was later revealed that Dmytro had stabbed Pete Fleming, the youngest member of the expedition. The American was only 27 years old. During the attack, Pete shouted, so the Waorani heard him. He yelled that the missionaries came in peace, but those were just screams. Nobody understood the language. Did they resist? The only thing they did was shoot in the air, to scare us, to make us run away. Were you afraid of the guns? Do you know at the time what a gun was? Yes, we knew. We already had skirmishes with people around us who used guns. It's important to emphasize that initially the missionaries didn't want to take weapons with them of all. They believed that if everything went really bad, then their time had come to meet with God. But their relatives convinced them to take a few rifles and pistols. Together they agreed among themselves that they would only shoot at the last resort, if their life would be in danger, and still they would shoot in the air. What do you think? Why didn't shoot at you? Perhaps they couldn't make it. When it all started, we attacked faster. How many spears did each of those killed get? Attack was very fast. All of them were hit by one spear, except the pilot. The pilot tried to escape, but Dayuma's mother caught up with him and wrapped her arms around him like this. She wanted to knock him down, but the pilot took out a gun and tried to shoot into the air. As a result, the pilot got 2 spears. He was trying to raise his hand to shoot in the air, but the blow of the spear knocked him down and the bullet hit Nampa's head. The wound wasn't severe. He survived. Outside, it healed, but apparently some part of the bullet got inside. A few months later, they began to get pieces of a bullet out of his head. Nampa lived for another 5 months. He walked around in the woods and hunted, and then one day he came and said he was dying. In his wound, some insects appeared, and he died because of them. Today, no one can say for sure whether the missionaries were simply taken by surprise or they couldn't use weapons and remain true to their principles even in the face of death. But the fact is, the Indian spears again turned out to be stronger than rifles and pistols. So, friends, now I know the purpose of the notches. Not only for getting a spear with flesh. When it was thrust into your enemy, he couldn't pull it out quickly and run away. It's impossible to pull such a spear out of your body. The other side is a smooth spear to hit a lot and kill a lot of people. Hit and pull, hit and pull. We killed everyone and began to pierce the plane with our spears. We dismantled some of the pieces and took them with us. Spears of uncontacted Indians pursued the plane. Here are the most valuable exhibits of the museum. This is the wreckage of the same aircraft. Part of the wreckage was taken by the Indians. This is how the missionaries fell victim to a fatal set of circumstances. Of all the wild Waorani settlements, they were unlucky enough to be in the one from the Dayuma fled and where her family lived. And of all the Indians of the community, the one who misinterpreted the picture came to meet them. The bodies of the missionaries were buried on the same beach that were made a historic event and where they were killed. The river has since changed course. The shore where the missionaries were buried was submerged. It was right here. So their grave is right here under the water. Yes, but the river has long since carried away all the remains. What was the main mistake of the missionaries? What should have been done to avoid being killed? Their main mistake was they wanted to make the first contact on their own. They needed to take Dayuma with them. She wouldn't have helped the missionaries and the Indians to better understand each other. Later, this is exactly what happened. It was Dayuma, the runaway girl, who eventually brought civilization to the Waorani people. We managed to find a relative of Dayuma, the woman who changed the lives of all the Waorani. The first Waorani to make contact. Here in this modest house in the town of Puya lives her own daughter. Buenos dias. I'm Dima. What's your name? Eva Mencamo. You are the daughter of that very Dayuma, aren't you? Yes, it's me. Welcome. Dayuma is a legendary figure in all of Ecuador. It's widely believed that her missionary work made the Waorani realize that killing is not a method of resolving issues, and all problems can be solved peacefully. It's important to emphasize that this was a joint victory for Dayuma and the very man who died from spears on first contact. In memory of their family, the women continued the work of their lives and remained in Ecuador to establish contact with the tribe. The circumstances were such that after the missionaries got killed, their closest relatives continued to establish contacts with the Waorani. They forgave the Waorani and still tried to finish what their husbands and their brothers started. Did your mom tell you how the tribe responded to her arrival after many years of her absence? Yes, my mother said that when she went to make contact, she took off her clothes to enter the settlement as a Waorani. She wasn't immediately recognized. Everyone was sure that she was dead. Even her mother and grandmother didn't believe that Dmytro was in front of them. At first, the Dmytro who killed the missionaries wanted to kill Dmytro too, because she had abandoned the tribe. But she reassured him and explained that aggression and murder would lead nowhere. She offered to help. She said that she could bring everything they needed from the outside world. She brought a lot of things that we never had, clothes and various household tools. Dmytro explained to us that we need to make friends with the outside world. My mother told her tribe that she would bring foreigners who could be trusted. She explained that they were not cannibals, so the first Waorani settlement became contacted. So it turns out that your aunt stopped the whole era of murders. Yeah, she changed the society and the entire culture of Waorani. After some time, the Americans began to fly over other Waorani settlements and drop gifts from the plane: sugar, rice, food, useful things. And my mother showed how to use them and convinced everyone that it was necessary to get in touch with the outside world. Such changes literally turned the world of the Waorani upside down. Before contact with civilization, they lived in these woods, guided by completely different principles. What laws did your fathers live by? Why did they kill all the strangers? When someone came into our house without permission, the first decision was always to kill the kavodi. It means a stranger. We defended the territory from intrusions. You know, if we translate it in a modern way, maybe they knocked at the wrong door. How did you determine that it was an invasion? Uncontacted people have a completely different idea of the world. The whole forest is their territory, and they consider the outside world hostile. So if someone came from there, it was immediately considered an attack, and it was necessary to respond. Why were the Waorani so cruel? Since childhood, I was taught two things: to hunt and fight. It was our life. How many wars took place between the tribes, and how often did they kill each other? Before making contact, clans were constantly at war. At any moment, somebody from one clan could get angry at somebody from another clan, attack and kill them. The tribesmen of the dead man began to take revenge and attacked in response. This is the rule of life in the woods. Men of the tribes were always ready to attack. For example, they killed my father when I was little. They pierced him with a spear at night when he was sleeping in a hammock. Our house was surrounded and attacked while we were sleeping. I was in my father's arms. I was lucky that the spear passed by and didn't hit me, so I survived. My mom grabbed me and managed to run away into the forest, but many other people died. How many people died in one night? About 10 men and several women. There were many more wounded. Waorani tradition says that such attacks cannot go unanswered. They must be avenged in response, and you, no less cruel revenge, is sure to come. And so on in a circle to infinity. Blood feud of different groups Waorani has been passed down from generation to generation. There was only one way to break this chain: to kill everyone who can take revenge. When my father was killed, my sister was buried alive with him. She was about that age. Can you imagine? Children were then buried alive with their dead parents. Why did they kill your sister and let you live? I was still a baby, and my sister was older, so to avoid a tribal war, she was killed. Because you couldn't remember it, but your sister could, and the blood feud would continue. Yes, that's right. It was believed that babies wouldn't remember anything, but older children at the time of murders could run into the woods, and when they grew up, they returned to avenge the murder of their parents. In those days, the law of blood feud was strict and mandatory. During the wars between the settlements, they tried to kill the entire community, so that there was no one to take revenge. There were 50 or even 80 people at that time. It's very difficult to accurately calculate how many people you killed in a lifetime. On average, each warrior killed 20 to 50 people. It's awful. How many people have you killed in your life, in total? I can't say exactly how many I killed, but often about 20 people. In those days, the Waorani not only fought each other, but also the whole outside world. For a long time, they were sure that all the strangers who come to their forest are cannibals, and so you need to kill them. How did you even know that we're such a thing as cannibals? Your tribe hasn't practiced cannibalism. The other people were talking about it, so we were just sure of it. Strangers were called kavodi, and everyone was afraid to fall into their hands. Our ancestors were aggressive. In any incomprehensible situation, the main solution for them had always been murder. The situation changed after most of the Waorani made contact and converted to Christianity. Thou shalt not kill. The new teaching for them helped stop the endless blood feud. The Waorani began to think differently. This is noticeable even in the example of our heroes. Our parents had a feud. Once my brother deceived the entire tribe. He said that Dmytro's father was going to kill them. Begonka's father got very angry. He gathered all his family and together they killed Dmytro's dad. I'm a little confused. Your dad killed your dad? Yes. When was that? Before I was born. When my mom was pregnant. Yes, you heard right. The men who are standing in front of me are friends today, smiling and hugging. The father of one of them killed the father of the other. Why are you friends now, talking, not killing each other, according to the rules of your tribe? Our fathers lived in a completely different world. And thanks to the Yuma, this is water under the bridge now. I realized that conflicts are a road to nowhere. This is unique. The man who sits with us has forgiven the murder of his father and says that we need to live in peace. Later, everyone who participated in the murder of the missionaries sincerely repented of what they had done. Do you regret killing them? We thought they were all cannibals, so we stabbed them. But now I think they were good people. To this day, I ask God for forgiveness and ask myself, why did we kill them? I hope God will forgive me. You repented. When you encountered civilization, was there any prosecution according to the laws of Ecuador, not the laws of the woods? After all, the modern law says you're a murderer. The wife of the pilot we killed said, "Don't touch those Indians. My husband was doing an important job. He had a mission, and even if he died, there is no need to punish them." After those events, most of the Waorani have come into contact with the outside world. Part of the Indians moved to the cities. Oil companies gained access to these lands and began to get along peacefully with the Indians. But two groups remained, Tagayeri and Terraminani, which flatly refused any contact with the outside world, and they continued to live in isolation in a separate, agreed territory. 3 decades they were not touched, but in the 80s of the last century, the state issued a permit for oil production already on the last lands of uncontacted tribes. In fact, behind the scenes, the go-ahead was given to the physical destruction of the Indians. The special op forces were indeed in full combat readiness. At that moment, uncontacted Waorani were under the threat of complete extinction. Their last chance was clergy, order of the Capuchin missionaries. In the 80s, we kept in close contact with the Waorani who came into contact. We helped them to adapt to the new world. We protected their rights, and when they found out that uncontacted tribes were in danger, we decided to prevent the extermination of the Indians who had lived in these woods for centuries. There was only one person whose word was heeded by both the state and the oilmen, because he was the representative of the Pope in the region, Bishop Alejandro Labaca. Due to his status, he managed to be an intermediary between the authorities and the Indians, and now he hoped to use his status to save the uncontacted Indians from complete physical extermination. As soon as Alejandro found out about such plans, he wrote an appeal to the authorities and the oil industry in which he urged them not to do this. He understood that the Indians would never give up their territories and the oil workers would not live without oil. Blood will be shed. When Alejandro spoke in defense of the tribes, the bishops listened. His authority could not be ignored, and they were forced to negotiate. A few days later, the Señor Labaca was visited by representatives of the oil company. Here, the very table at which the fateful negotiations took place. There were 12 people at that table. The negotiations were not easy. The oil company's license was about to expire, so they hurried to start working in the jungle at any cost. Alejandro was unable to dissuade them from extracting oil on the territory of the uncontacted groups. So he decided to go there first. He understood that it was risky and dangerous, but he hoped that he would be able to persuade the Indians to leave to avoid being killed. For this very reason, unlike the American missionaries, the Señor Labaca didn't have time for a long exchange of gifts. He decided to take a chance and immediately go to the Indians in person. They gave him a military helicopter. The first time Alejandro flew into Tagayeri territory, they failed to land. But from above they saw that not far from the traditional Onca house, the Indians stuck a large stick with a skull and crossed spears, a sign that you can't come here. Can you imagine that? The Tagayeri warned future potential guests that death is here. Even more than Waorani tried to dissuade him from this undertaking, warning him that he would most likely be killed. That was the last time José Miguel saw his friend alive. Our last conversation was in this room. Both the Waorani and I told him not to go down there. But Alejandro believed that everything would be fine. He even took Sister Inés with him. He had to convince the Indians that they came in peace. He believed that women were respected and protected, so they would not kill her. Unfortunately, he was wrong. For Tagayeri, everyone was the same. Women, oil workers, missionaries. For them, everyone was Kavodi, their enemies. José Miguel shows me the last pictures of Alejandro and Inés taken during their lifetime, right before they flew out to the uncontacted Indians for negotiations. On June 21st, 1987, a helicopter specially hired by an oil company dropped the missionaries in the middle of the jungle. They hoped that they could negotiate peacefully with the wild Indians. The Indians will never come out to you if they hear a helicopter. So the pilot flew away and, according to the plan, was supposed to return in half an hour. But that didn't happen. According to the pilot, he allegedly didn't find the land inside, so he returned without them. It's still a mystery to me how this happened. After all, the pilot had the exact coordinates. When we realized that Alejandro and Inés were left in the jungle, we raised the alarm. The next day, a rescue operation was launched. But when the helicopter got to the place, it was already too late. José Miguel, who flew to pick up his friend, saw only abandoned huts near which bodies pierced by spears lay. Some people say that they were not killed immediately. They were invited into the house, treated with food, and only when the men returned from hunting, the murder occurred. The fact is, some spears are used for hunting. For killing people, they use completely different ones. Alejandro's body contained 17 spears meant for a human. So the men returned from hunting, changed their weapons, and only then killed the strangers. You can kill with one spear. The question is, why 17 spears and why so cruel? The Indians believe that if you pull the spear out of the dead body, the spirit of the person can come out and find the killer for revenge. So as many spears as possible are needed. To confuse the spirit, and the killer wasn't found. And the one who pulls the spear out joins the spirit of the deceased. It turns out that the spirit of Alejandro now lives in me, because I was the one who pulled the spears from his body. You pulled the spears from your friend with your own hands. Yes, I did. To do this, I even had to step on his body. The soldiers who were with me didn't want to do it, and I had to pull out all 17 spears with my own hands. After that, I didn't speak at all for almost a month. I only had one thought. We had to give weapons to the Waorani so that they could deal with the oil workers themselves. Because he was my friend, my best friend. Jose Miguel still keeps one of those spears here. It's soaked in blood of my friend Alejandro. The spear was stuck into his body up to this point. The other side of it was decorated with bird feathers. From above it looked frighteningly beautiful. It looked like a devil flower. Sorry, I'm just trying it on myself and comparing. It goes right through here. It's on the ground. It's hard to hold it in your hands, not literally but figuratively, because I feel all the pain. Do you think I can get such a spear if today I find myself in the woods? The only chance of survival is if they have spears for hunting, not for killing people. Because that's how they kill. The 21st century tourists flew into space, but if I go down to the woods, they will kill me with a spear because these people still don't want to contact the outside world. They don't want to see you there. Alejandro Labaca was aware of this mortal risk, and he knew exactly what he was going to die for. This phrase on your central wall, it reminds everyone of the last words of Alejandro Labaca. If we don't go there, they will be killed. Nevertheless, the death of Bishop Labaca and Sister Inez changed the history of the entire region and tribes. After the murder, the area was closed to oil production for a period while the investigation was ongoing. The Indians were left alone. By sacrificing himself, Alejandro essentially saved the Indians. However, oil production in the jungles of Ecuador didn't stop, and over the years, it's gaining momentum, and today, it's moving closer to the Indians. Do you know how many uncontacted tribes there were before the Tagayeri and Terminari and then disappeared? There was a lot of them. Who is talking about them now? No one. And when these groups disappear, they will also be forgotten. Alejandro Labaca was the last person to make contact with the dangerous Tagayeri group over 30 years ago. After these events, no attempt has been made to find these people until today. Nobody is willing to risk their lives. In our expedition, we have collected all available confirmed information that should help get closer to the mystery of uncontacted Waorani. We have examined all maps and pieced together all the information we found to maximize our chances of finding the uncontacted ones. And now, before saying goodbye to our new Waorani friends, we are ready for the final stage of our expedition. We are preparing a special operation, but unfortunately the data of the location of uncontacted tribes becomes outdated very quickly because they are nomads. They move. Almost all this territory is the place where uncontacted tribes can be found, but you need to study it for months. We acted as follows. We turned it to the elders, to the local guides, and Waorani themselves told us about the place of the most probable location of uncontacted tribes. Do you remember when we're floating down the river? We always look around and listen for sound and noises here. Then we're shown the places of the murders. Do you see the driftwood? It was placed there as a sign of memory. 5 years ago, a man was killed here, and after that they said that starting from this point is already safe. Here, we found these places on the map. We determined the rectangle of the probable location of uncontacted Tagayeri. We will fly across this rectangle by plane in the search and rescue operation mode, for no single place was left without our attention. The pilot is coming today. We don't tell anyone what we're up to, because flights over the zone of uncontacted tribes are prohibited. We hardly managed to find a person who agreed to fulfill our request and fly with us. Moreover, this must be done at a low altitude to consider everything. Well, Sasha, do you think there is hope? Hope is always there. Right, getting ready to fly. Something incredible is waiting for us today. In Brazil, we've already tried to find the same, but unfortunately, instead of the Indians, we only saw massive deforestation. Now, in the Ecuadorian Amazon, we decided not to give up and make another attempt to find an uncontacted settlement and capture it from the air in photos and videos. Such footage can become extremely important in studying these unique people without harming them. This is an incredibly difficult task, but if you don't give up one day, it may work out. Perhaps the day is today. We are not looking for the Shangri-La, but for people who are very real and definitely exist in this forest. Buenos dias. How's the weather? The sky is clear. There's everything you need for a good flight. We use such phrases so that no one can guess what we're talking about. Let's start loading them. Here, friends, additional fuel. We have to fly over an area of 1,800 square kilometers or 180,000 hectares. Given that we're going to fly around this area in zigzags, and at a low altitude, the distance is very large, at the limit of the range in our aircraft. To have enough fuel for the entire route, the pilot commands to lighten the plane as much as possible. Meanwhile, in the best traditions of the inside-out world, we say goodbye to our Waorani friends. We'll try to repeat what the missionaries did back in the 50s. Well, as they say, off we go. We're picking up speed and taking off. Our special operation begins. To search for Indians who have never been in contact with the outside world. Right below us is point number 1. We're scanning the area. There are people living here about whom nothing is known, except that they belong to the Waorani group, and they kill anyone who dares to set foot on this land. Right now, a kind of Operation Auca is taking place. The width of the rectangle we are examining is 16 miles. We passed the first line. Nothing so far. Let's get to point number 2. One can understand the scale and complexity of this operation because absolutely nothing is visible. We've already seen that the distinguishing feature of the Waorani settlements is the triangular-shaped palm leaf house. This is also used by modern Waorani. Uncontacted tribes used to live in such houses, and apparently today they continue to live in such houses. This could be the main clue. If we are very lucky, then we have a chance to see one and continue our search in this more compact area. This is how the missionaries first discovered them, by the house roof. But so far, we can only see the lush grounds of the dense forest without a single gap. There is one more problem. According to our guide Miguel, today uncontacted groups hide their houses even more carefully because they already know about planes. The settlements look completely different now. If earlier they cleared the territory and put a house in the center, now they hide it under a large tree. Here you have to literally pick some small dotted segments where there's anything except the woods. Right now, for example, it seems that generally, oh, this is just a forest, but I can see a small creek and a small segment of land. I can see it with my binoculars. I'm looking, but I don't observe anything, and this is repeated endlessly. The pilot follows the planned route strictly. We're combing the search area, section by section, line by line. Tonanaco Chica River, we have now passed over the channel, and it's all virgin. What is very impressive is the trees fallen across the river. This suggests that no one sails in boats here. There are places with no people. Wherever there are people, they are sure to cut these trees or use a chainsaw. From above, it's very difficult to see the details, but you can clearly see the reason what led civilization to the Waorani woods. I can see oil fields on the horizon. One can clearly see the smoke here. Now we're almost over the center of the territory of uncontacted groups. In fact, that from here we can see the work of oil workers with the naked eye shows the danger in which these tribes are. The outside world is gradually taking over their lands. The missionaries who tried to make contact had different goals. They wanted to explain that killing is bad. They wanted to explain that a civilized world is not terrible. They wanted to explain what the advantages of living in tandem with a civilized world are. Our goal is completely different. We just want to see and make sure that these people are still there. But we won't bother them in any case. Even if we find them, we turn around and again we fly from the west to the east. Another line. Flat space, a platform, a small creek, empty. After completely untouched rivers, we're gradually approaching those on which the most daring Waorani sail in boats. Here, friends, this is the place of the murder. In this place, a guide was killed. We've already talked with his parents. This is the very epicenter of the uncontacted tribe called Tagieri habitation. Now we need to be especially careful and look at every free piece of land uncovered by the forest and every part of the coast. We've been in the air for more than 2 hours and have already passed more than 10 lines on our scheme, but so far, unfortunately, nothing. Not a single roof, not a single house, not a single person, just empty. Totally empty. On one hand, the fact that we haven't found any uncontacted Indians yet is not the best news for a journalist, but in fact, judging by conversation with our Waorani friends, I'm beginning to realize that perhaps this is for the best. When all Waorani were uncontacted, it was better. We didn't have to buy anything. Previously, the woods were our one and only store. I can easily live my life in the woods, that's why I'd rather stay here. For example, I would never want to live in the city, because people are dying early there. Civilization and Indians must live separately. I like to use what civilization gives. I have comfortable clothes. I can sleep on a mattress, not just in a hammock. Waorani got clothes, shoes, and all the benefits of civilization, but they're losing their language, culture, and identity. Our children are getting education. They want to explore the world, not to return to the woods. What we're seeing now is a tragedy. This is the end of the true Waorani. For uncontacted tribes, voluntary isolation is the only way to preserve their traditions. No matter how hard our new acquaintances from the tribe were relieved, contacts with civilization gradually kill this authenticity and they become more modern. Because it's impossible to remain wild Indians when you have Wi-Fi, the opportunity to go to the city, buy goods in a supermarket, and so on. Of course, the arrival of foreigners, doctors, tourists, scientists, journalists, all this transforms the Indians, and they're no longer the same. When the missionaries came to us, they let the oil workers into our land. Many Waorani had to leave their home and look for new places to live. I don't like that we made contact. Those who remained uncontacted, they are completely different people. They live according to the laws of the woods, according to the laws of the jungle. So the Tagieri are right when they still don't make contact. Better not contact them. Let them live where they live, and we will live in this world. The whole culture of the modern world is built on money. I don't like it. Better not disturb them. They have a good life there. We spent several weeks, efforts, resources to try and see at least the home of the uncontacted ones, but no result. This time we didn't become pioneers, although this is still possible. But now I can say it for sure, the fact that we didn't find them is a good sign. If we can't find them, then perhaps those who can destroy them will not find them either. Well, friends, we went through the entire route, scanned a vast territory, but to our great regret, or to our great happiness, we never saw the Indians. They are definitely here. There are many facts about this. Surely today they heard the engine of our plane and hid somewhere under the trees. We didn't disturb them and we're leaving. We leave with the hope that everything will be fine with them. That these lands will not be destroyed by oil producers and lumberjacks. The Indians are the owners of their lands, and I wish them to live the way they want. And they want to live without contact with the civilized world. It's time for us to fly further in search of new, bright acquaintances and impressions. Next of the World Inside Out. Wow, the bull broke through. I didn't have time to leave, my friends. I didn't notice how we ended up on this tree. This is a powerful animal that is used in corrida in bullfight. We will meet people who know how to tame them. We are already praying that there will be no accident. Ecuadorian cowboys. Handsome. Viva Chacros! Where do the future Chacros begin their journey? This will be a battle. Here he is, well done, 3 years, and he will participate, right? Our children are riding llamas from the cradle. Let's find out whether it's easy to saddle even the most harmless animal. The cuteness of these handsome animals is over the top. Go on! The real underside of mountainous Ecuador. The most interesting things are ahead. This is possible only here, only in Ecuador. The World Inside Out with Dmytro.